discuss and take action on a list of questions for potential attorneys.
I'd like to ask why this is on the agenda.
So right now we're gathering a list of attorneys that's being recommended to us. We've got like 7 of them right now. And so when we discussed this before with the board had indicated that they wanted to have some input into what's going on. And we thought maybe it'd be easier to come up with a list of questions to send out these attorneys instead of inviting all 7 of them here one night and have a nice long discussion about their services. I don't know if that would be the best approach or not. It's just the approach that we're taking right now.
I would think board members would, if they've got any questions for the attorneys, they'll have them. I don't understand sitting here trying to come up with a list of questions to ask them, unless you want to ask them if they will agree with you, your views on the law.
That was not going to be on my list of questions for you.
I would hope not.
When you say we, who are you referring to?
I guess
I've
I've been discussing with Chip on the attorneys, on this planning and attorney, and we've gotten some recommendations from Porch, and we've gotten some from the CAE, and we've gotten some from, I think there was somewhere else we got them too. But, you know, it doesn't matter to me what way we do this. I don't care if we invite them all here and we ask them whatever we want right here in front of everybody. I'm good with that. Or we send them a list of questions and we get the questioner back and we ask them all the same questions that don't relate to any future business that we're going to be talking about, other than maybe what their experience with 286 is, without getting into details of what we're going to be asking them to do. It doesn't matter to me which way we go. This is just one approach.
We've got an attorney that's represented this hospital for 20 years, and I suspect that his knowledge of hospital law, especially rural and small hospitals, is as good as anything you're going to find. I don't understand why you're so anxious to get rid of him. Actually, I know why. I want to know if you want to tell everybody why.
I just have issues with the opinions and the...
Well, because you don't agree with him, Paul.
No, it's that they keep changing.
No, they don't.
Yes, they did. And I have proof of this, and Chip can back me up here. Tuesday of this week, the story changed on another item on this agenda today. As far as having to do
The 1 and 2 year terms.
the 1 and 2 year terms. That opinion changed on Tuesday of this week. It was set one way for as long as the election has been held, and then Tuesday he changed his opinion when I challenged him on his claim. He made this claim and said 286 says it has to be 4-3, it's mandatory, it's in the code. And so I challenged him on it, and then he came back and he said, no, it's not in the code. He said then, oh, it's in the petition that requested this election. But then if you go and look at the petition section, 10.022, which describes what may and has to be in the petition, that's not in it.
Speaking in the microphone, we'll get some people in the back. If you don't mind, speak directly into it. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And so, you know, not to mention the procedure in which they used to deal with petitions in the past, which was, in my opinion, you know, a violation would be a violation of what the Attorney General and the Elections Office has put out as way to process petitions. They did it just the opposite. You're supposed to be looking for ways to improve the signatures, not looking for ways to not approve them. And that's the method they chose to do that. And that's one big problem I have with those attorneys.
Well, I've had some experience with it before, and when I give you an answer and you answer me, you argue with me. I don't understand how you argue with somebody that's got infinitely more experience and knowledge than you do. Let me quote you something out of 286, since you want to talk about 286. If you look at 286.042, paragraph D6, and this talks about it slightly different, but if the directors are elected from commissioners' precincts and at large, line 6 says, if more than one director is elected at large, half of the directors elected serve 2-year terms, the other half serve 1-year terms. That's the intent of the law. Okay, I told you this before. It's 4-3, not 5-2.
It says if the directors are elected from commissioners' precincts and at large.
I know. Why would that be different than the other, Paul?
They weren't elected for commissioners' precincts. I mean, we didn't have a precinct election. We had a countywide election. That's an at-large election.
It doesn't matter. I've told you what the law is, that the law does not want a larger majority than simple majority. Simple majority is one more than half, or 50% plus one, going off at any election period. It's set up that way everywhere.
I'll read this other part.
Even listen to me just a second. Listen to me just a second. Even to the fact that not all county officers are up for election at one time. There's half of them at one time and half at another time. There's roughly half the commissioner's court one time, half the other time. And all of a sudden you want this to be different. It's simply because you are facing the possibility of only having a one-year term, or Mr. Brother here, you don't want that. That's the plain, simple truth.
It has nothing to do with that. If you read the code that you're quoting, 286.042, and you look at section B instead of D, it says, if the directors are elected at large, which we were, the appropriate number of candidates receiving the highest number of votes at the initial election of directors are directors for the district. And that happened. And the second number underneath that is the number of directors equal to a majority of the directors who receive the highest number of votes at the initial election serve for a term of 2 years. And that spells out who gets the 2 years. And then it says, and the remaining directors serve for a term of 1 year. That's under the elected at-large section.
Okay, but what's the majority, Paul?
Right.
So it's 5.
But 4 and 5 tie. And so you can't say...
Look under section... No. Listen. I'll tell you what. When you get some attorneys up here, I want to ask one question. What's the solution to this? Do 5 people get 2-year terms? They don't.
Are you saying you
look under 2.002? Listen to me.
Okay.
Look under 2.002 of the election code.
Look at 2.01 of the election code. You're talking about 2.02, which is under a plurality vote. Our election was not a plurality vote as defined in 2.01. Where it's defined?
What law school did you go to?
I didn't go to law school.
Well, then why do you think you know more than attorneys?
The simple legal text of the state legislature.
Trying to reason with you is impossible. Just ask, when you get the attorneys up here, ask them one question. What's the solution to this? Because when they give you the same answer after they give you the same answer that Kevin Reed gave, you're going to want to fire them too.
Do you want to do that when we're interviewing them or after we've interviewed them and hired them?
Before they are hired. And besides, you've got an attorney now. Are you going to fire him?
Because I wasn't going to prejudge and ask them that question before we hired them. I was all good with whatever, after the fact, we hire the attorney, we have to follow the procedure, and we make sure that we get the opinion that it is real. And then we move from there. You're wanting to go and jump on this and just close this down when there's months before it has to be resolved.
Oh, really? Okay.
And you're trying to say, I'm doing it for this reason when it's not true.
I've got it in black and white, Paul. I mean, you started this before you were even in office.
You're saying I'm doing this for XYZ reason, and that XYZ reason is not true. I'm doing it because it's what the law says.
I give up. I give up arguing with him. He'll argue with his fence post. It's going to be determined between now and then. Somebody will be sorry if you put this off until the next election cycle. I guarantee you that.
I don't want to put it off. I want to get it solved quickly.
And you're ignoring the answer that you're given by your attorney that's represented this hospital for 20 years.
Solve it pretty quickly. All we have to do is...
Yeah, all we have to do is cast lots. That's what it says in 2.002, but you don't agree with that.
2.002 doesn't apply to us.
Really?
Yeah, per definition of 2.01.
All right, so back to our original question, what are we doing about coming up with questions for attorneys? I think that died for lack of a...
It sounds to me like we're anxious for the attorneys to come here so we can give them the third degree in person.
All right.
I would just ask that, I mean, if somebody doesn't have at least equivalent experience to what the attorney we have now has, there's really no significant reason for them to come visit us, in my opinion. If 2 of them or 4 of them haven't, worked for more than a year or 2 in small hospitals, I don't think we need to interview them.
Several of these were recommended by Porch. One group was actually recommended by Ray, people that he had met in the past that he was impressed with, etc. I'm not saying that just because we talk to somebody we have to change. I'm just saying that I think to be good stewards of this budget, if there's a substantial amount of money to save, then let's save some money. If we're not going to save anything, then I agree. We don't change.
I completely agree with you. I just don't want to save money by decreasing the quality of our.
I agree with that myself. Low bid doesn't always win. We'll discuss that Monday.
Most people don't want cheap lawyers.
All right, so are we done talking about lawyers? Does anybody want to make any kind of motion? So that item dies for lack of activity.